Third-party AI risk begins before a tool goes live. In this module, we'll connect vendor diligence, contract terms, monitoring, and offboarding into one evidence trail. So HIPAA, GDPR, and NIST expectations become practical controls, not separate checklists. We've already built the internal foundation: AI inventories, data flows, risk mapping, HIPAA, GDPR, NIST controls, and audit evidence. Now we extend that control boundary to vendors, cloud services, model providers, processors, and subprocessors, linking each one to due diligence, contracts, monitoring, and exit controls. Your AI risk boundary does not stop at your own systems. Any vendor that touches prompts, logs, data, models, or outputs can create obligations your organization still owns. Mapping makes that hidden exposure visible. To map third-party AI risk, connect each vendor to the AI lifecycle. Infrastructure providers may touch hosting, storage, and compute. Model vendors may receive prompts, support fine-tuning, or reuse data for training. Data vendors raise sourcing, consent, labeling, and quality concerns. Operational tools add monitoring, workflow, security, and support exposures. For each vendor, ask what they can access, what they can retain, and which subprocessors they depend on. A vendor inventory is the bridge between AI systems and third-party governance. Capture the vendor, service, supported use case, and business, technical, and contract owners. Then map the data involved, including PHI, prompts, outputs, embeddings, logs, and metadata. Finally, assign the regulatory role and connect the record to controls, evidence, renewals, risk ratings, and review dates. Without that linkage, due diligence becomes guesswork instead of repeatable oversight. iVendor due diligence should work as a decision process, not a paperwork exercise. First, collect the evidence: questionnaires, certifications, privacy terms, and compliance reports. Next, review the technical reality: architecture, data flows, integrations, access, encryption, and logs. For AI vendors, go deeper into training data, fine-tuning, prompt handling, monitoring, and human oversight. Then risk rate the findings, record them in the risk register, and require remediation before approval when controls are not sufficient. A security review is more than a checklist of controls. It shows how trust is enforced across the vendor environment. Look at access first: MFA, least privilege, admin separation, and privileged access controls. Then test the architecture, including encryption, key management, segmentation, backups, and configuration. For AI vendors, follow the data itself. Prompts, outputs, embeddings, logs, training data, and model artifacts may move differently than normal application data, especially when subprocessors or external services are involved. iVendors also need a more specialized diligence lens. Ask exactly how your data, prompts, outputs, and embeddings may be reused. Review the model evidence, documentation, data provenance, validation, bias results, known limits, and performance metrics. Examine safety controls for hallucination, prompt injection, abuse, leakage, and automated decisions. Finally, confirm operational discipline through versioning, change notice, rollback, monitoring, and human escalation. The goal is not trust by promise, but trust backed by controls. Assurance evidence only helps when it proves the vendor's actual service is controlled, tested, and monitored. Request SOC2 Type 2, ISO 27001, HITRUST, penetration test summaries, vulnerability results, and remediation proof when relevant. Then inspect the details: scope, dates, findings, subprocessors, locations, and refresh cycles. A clean certificate can still hide risk if it is expired, excludes the AI environment, or leaves incidents and corrective actions unresolved. Contracts turn vendor promises into enforceable controls. For AI, standard security language is not enough. Terms need to define who owns the data, how it may be used, how long it is retained, and when it must be deleted or returned. Add AI-specific terms, including no training on customer data, no model improvement without approval, and notice of material model changes. Each clause should map to an owner, evidence, and audit test. Effective contracting starts by naming the vendor's regulatory role. Under HIPAA, an AI vendor that creates, receives, maintains, or transmits PHI for a covered entity typically needs a BAA. Under GDPR, a vendor processing personal data for a controller needs a DPA under Article 28. Once the role is clear, the contract can assign safeguards, confidentiality, subprocessor controls, breach notice, deletion, and audit cooperation. Cross-border healthcare AI may need both. Data controls in AI contracts must be specific, because sensitive information can appear in prompts, outputs, logs, embeddings, metadata, and support records. The vendor should not use that data for model training, product improvement, benchmarking, or unrelated analytics unless you clearly approve it. Retention also needs boundaries for production data, backups, logs, artifacts, and temporary files. At exit, require return or deletion, plus evidence, so the promise is verifiable. Third-party AI risk also extends beyond the vendor you sign with. It includes the cloud providers, model hosts, logging tools, analytics services, and support platforms behind that vendor. Strong controls start with a current subprocessor list showing what each service does, what data it receives, where it is hosted, and its security posture. Then require advance notice, objection rights, equivalent contractual obligations, and location mapping for residency, GDPR transfers, breach response, and deletion. Vendor risk management is a lifecycle, not a one-time approval. Review frequency should match the vendor's risk tier, data sensitivity, business criticality, and regulatory exposure. Keep evidence current by refreshing SOC reports, penetration test summaries, certifications, insurance, and attestations. Between reviews, monitor subprocessors, service or model changes, incidents, and open remediation. When the relationship ends, offboarding must prove data return or deletion, access revocation, integration shutdown, and documented termination evidence. The key lesson is that third-party AI risk is not a vendor checklist. It is a governance chain. Assess the provider, lock requirements into contracts, monitor performance, prepare for incidents, and preserve evidence. Next, we turn that evidence into reporting leaders can use.